had that in play, and I'm sure your attorney would let you know that. But no, those 5 are great. I mean, that's what we need in order to move forward.
Yeah, I would concur. The whole private attorney thing, I like it. And, you know, my advice to CISOs is it doesn't hurt asking. I mean, you're going to have to be bold anyway. Start being bold when you're negotiating for the position. You want to make sure it's covered. It doesn't hurt to ask, to float the idea. And depending on the organization, you may want to push harder, right, to make sure that you do have that. And there's probably going to be some barriers on when you can bring in a private attorney. Obviously, it's not going to be on every document and everything that you're doing for the company, but definitely on public disclosures. All right, so we're going to open it up. I believe there's some questions here from the audience. What do we have out there?
So the first one says, did SolarWinds and its CISO fail to disclose material cybersecurity risks to investors?
All right, Jim, Michael, we talked about it, but what do you think?
Potentially.
Okay, I've got one potential. Michael, what would you say?
I'm going to say potentially also, because it depends.
I'm going to say, and it's another way of saying potentially, but I'm going to say if even half of what's in the SEC complaint is true, I'm going to say yes. If it isn't true or forthright, then I'm going to say, no, you know.
We don't have the full picture. That's
right,
true.
Right. Okay, now I'm seeing the questions here. So the second one, did SolarWinds and its CISO ignore repeated red flags about the company's cybersecurity vulnerabilities? And Jim, you started talking about this, right? Especially when you talked about, you know, supply chain issues. And Michael, you talked about, right, nation state attackers. And I mean, ultimately, the audience needs to know what there were 18,000 potential victims at the compromise of their primary product. Now, not all of them were victimized, but you know, Jim, I'll start with you. Do you think, from a risk perspective, and kind of gets away from the case of fraud, but just from a risk management perspective, did SolarWinds drop the ball here?
No, I don't have information to support that premise at all. What I would say is that identity access management practice in software development in a cloud-first model across every single enterprise sucks, right? It's inadequate, insufficient, not enough. And that's every enterprise. And so we all every enterprise has to step up and deal with that challenge. And that's not necessarily unique to SolarWinds.
Yeah, Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, we see that across the board, right? And I know Jim used the word DevOps. I'm getting away from DevOps. It's DevSecOps. You have to include security when you start building that product. You've got to understand what that flow of data is. So if something happens, you're right there. So yeah, I think that's the first thing we need to do is make sure SDLC, that software development lifecycle, we know what's going on with there, and we're building a software platform that's going to work and it's going to be secure. But that starts at the beginning. It starts at the beginning of that DevSecOps. I totally agree with Jim.
Yeah, I'm in line with you guys. The reality is, were there red flags? Yes, but that's our daily job. We're dealing with red flags every single day. And so I haven't seen all the data. I don't know what they knew when they knew it. And so I can't say that, yeah, there were obvious red flags that they should have jumped on. I think there were red flags, but okay, out of the million red flags that we deal with, how do we know that this combination was, something so severe? At the point that the security firms came to them and said, we can definitively show that your product is hacked, which is what happened in December, at that point they did respond to it. So I do like that fact. But I'm with you guys, it's tough, especially when there's insufficient visibility, insufficient controls, and we do not have good security baked in as part of product development across the industry. It's not just SolarWinds, right? Unfortunately, it's everybody. This is just the state of maturity that we have. Another question came in here, what do you think about a negotiated contract clause that provides protections and rights to private defense. I think we talked about that a little bit. Is that something that should be negotiated when you're taking the job? Do you think, Jim, and you talk with a lot of CISOs here, do you think that's something that CISOs that are currently in the job, is that something that they can bring up with the CEO or the board to kind of implement retroactively? Is this something feasible, or is it just too, sticky, as Michael indicated? Oh, can't hear you, Jim. I still can't hear Jim. Okay, then I'm going to go to Michael on this one.
I think you can negotiate anything, even if you're already in a CISO position. Either you're taking a new job as a CISO or you're already the CISO. The worst thing that can happen is they say no. So why not try to negotiate something? And again, it could be kind of strange because they may say, hey, we want you to use this particular law firm, and if they're already using it, it could be a conflict, but why not give it a shot? I mean, you're going to go to the table and ask for things, you might as well.
Yeah. The worst case they can say is no, right? And then you've got to make a decision whether you're comfortable with that or not.
Correct.
Jim typed in here, and I'll read it for him. Yes, you should discuss this. If you are a current CISO, the probability of resolution is not high given the lack of leverage. Yeah, I think he's absolutely